let's get into what's up with the kids.
It is a crime for a teacher to have sex with a child. We're seeing more women who are being arrested for these crimes. In the past, women were not arrested. It may very well be that this has been going on for a much longer period of time, but now that we're arresting the women, we're seeing this phenomenon. These are women who are married. These are women who are dating. These are women who have children. These are women who may have been divorced, and they are trying to recreate something in their mind to bring them back to a childhood situation where they had their first sexual arousal and emotional arousal. Especially younger teachers who may be just 23 and may see the high school relationships with her students as not very different from what she had when she was trying to date and find passion in relationships. And often the boundary then gets lost between the teacher and the student. But you do have the authority of the teacher over the student. It's a very powerful one. The child may look adult, they may have fully developed genitals, but they are not equipped to deal emotionally with the relationship of falling in love or falling into sex with a teacher. All of the teachers I have been involved with in my practice, their marriages ended. The children took sides, and people treated the teacher as a monster. Many of them get hospitalized psychiatrically or put on heavy medication. Many of these teachers are good teachers, and they're never going to practice again, and they have to give up their license to practice. It's horrible what people can do when a lust relationship becomes associated with attachment.
Wow. Thank you to our friend from the New York Post. There is an alarming rate of teachers in this country that are being charged with raping young boys. That is true. I know the instinct that we all have in our minds is that it is males who are always the predators in our society, right? There was just this TikTok challenge. Ask your grandkids about it, or kids about it, where women would go up to their partners and ask them whether they would have their 2-year-old children, their infant children, left in the woods with a bear or with a man. And let me tell you, a large percentage of people are saying they would rather their 2-year-old or infant child be left in the woods by themselves with a bear rather than a man. I know that's I felt the same exact way about it. It's a pretty bizarre challenge, but it has gone viral. It is very big, but the perception is that men are these just awful predators, are more likely to do something to harm a child even than a bear, which is just obviously statistically ridiculous. Okay, even a misanthrope like I can be sometimes, I can't stand for that one. Like, I mean, it's just statistically ridiculous. A man who harms a child is a bad man. A bear who harms a child is just a bear doing what is completely natural to it, which is eating the child, or just like it would eat a salmon or any other animal. But the perception is that men are the predators in our species, and that it is men who we always have to look out for, but that is not the case. No, in the last year, 25 teachers have been arrested for sex crimes against children. Think about that. That is, yes, that is, wow. That is insane when you think about it. These crimes have spanned nationwide in 16 states, from California all the way to New York. Many of these teachers, as you heard in the video, are actually married and have their own kids. You know, And most of the time their age range is between 25 and 45, and their victims are as young as 11 years old. You heard me. 11 years old. Okay? Earlier this year, a married New Jersey teacher named Jessica Sawicki, who's 37 years old, was arrested after cops found her almost bucky naked, that's a thing, in the back seat of a teenage boy's car at a wildlife center. This woman had 2 kids and admitted to police that she and the student had unprotected sex at least 5 times. Now, again, obviously there's a lot of men in the audience who like to make jokes like, why was she my teacher? But just think about that. Just think about, what is she exposing that young boy to? A large percentage of a majority, pretty close to a majority of the human population over 50 has things like HPV or herpes. Okay, large swaths of the population have these diseases. Okay, now this woman is married and has 2 kids. She's 37 years old. I think it's safe to say that she's had adult consensual relationships with men. Who knows what STD she may be passing on to that young man? Imagine if she gets pregnant by this young man. This young man has probably never had a sexual relationship before, and if he has, very few. What if he gets emotionally attached to this 37-year-old woman with 2 children, who is also his teacher and has his grade and his future in her hands, literally? She can literally, with her hands, write something on his paper that will ruin his future. You know, and a lot of these, we are not talking about this in large numbers, again, because the perception is that women cannot be predators, and that is definitely not the truth. These women are sending sexually charged texts to young children. They are sending nude photos, nude videos, and some are even buying their victim's silence with cash and expensive gifts. Now think about the mental, again, think about the mental damage that is being done to somebody with a growing prefrontal cortex, frontal lobe, where they make decisions, when they are essentially being treated as a prostitute at a young age. Again, we're taught to look out for young girls, and ooh, that is that male teacher lingering too long with that young girl. Think about what it is doing to these young men to reduce them to basically sex objects at 14. Or, hell, even close to 11 years old. Now, why is this happening? Leading child psychologist Dr. Michael Oberschneider has said that social media is contributing to this dynamic. Social media is helping to blur the lines between student and teacher's relationship, which can in turn open the doors to more inappropriate outcomes. Now, that is important to state, because when I was in school, okay, it's funny, I'm that transitional generation, the millennials. I'm an older millennial. And when I was going to school in the 90s, nobody had the internet except for like rich people and people who had some money. And even then, the internet was so like slow and lagged so much, you just didn't want to sit on the internet all day. You couldn't just quickly send messages, internet was slow and arduous. It was an arduous task, the internet was. I did not have access to my teachers at all times. I didn't have access to my teachers when they were at home. When I was at home, I could not see what all their thoughts were, what music they were listening to, what movies they liked. I didn't have any way to talk to them outside of school. You know, I might see one of them at Ralph's. Everybody who's from Miller might remember Ralph's out there at Miller. I'd see one of my teachers at Ralph's at the supermarket and go, "Hey, Miss whoever." And she go, "Hey, Scott, are you doing your homework?" "Oh, yes, I'm doing my homework, Miss such and such." But I did not have the ability to constantly stay in contact with them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, basically, which is what social media allows. Students have far more access to their teachers through all these online formats, which can lead to inappropriate communications and even inappropriate relationships of a sexual nature. You know, and a lot of these teachers, and this is what happens when you devalue teaching. I've talked about this countless times. I haven't talked about it as much recently, especially since the Rev has been gone, but I think I'm going to have to talk about it so much that we've devalued parenting and we've devalued things like teacher in our society, because these are not things that are prioritized and treated as important anymore. Less people want to go into them. And some of the people who want to go into these fields are genuine weirdos. You have female teachers who are putting out sexually focused content on OnlyFans. How many of you guys know what OnlyFans is? OnlyFans is a pay site. Originally OnlyFans was started to give artists and people like chefs and other professionals an opportunity to communicate with their audience and only their audience. But at some point it was hijacked by, you know, what always hijacks every other technological breakthrough: pornography. And so now OnlyFans is considered a porn site, even though it's not technically a porn site. It's supposed to be for anybody who has an audience. Like I said, a lot of musicians used to start off, when OnlyFans was started off, musicians, chefs, painters. But now it's mostly sex workers who sell sex, you know, to their audience in some capacity. But a lot of these teachers have OnlyFans accounts that are sexually focused. And even on Instagram. Instagram is PG. You're not allowed to show anything, any nudity, or even you can't show nipple or anything on Instagram. But you can take pictures in bikinis. You can take pictures with your shirt off, you know, if you're a man, you know, and show off your washboard abs and show off your muscles. You can use Instagram. I mean, a lot of people just use it as basically a way to check people out, you know, and look through their pictures and you know, stalk them and look at what sexy pictures they have up there. A lot of these teachers have Instagram, and these kids are following their 7th grade teacher they can see in her bikini with her friends, or see her at a concert on Instagram. Now, another thing that seems like it's very scary in its implications is that this actually is not happening more. That we are merely hearing about it more because of the 24-hour news cycle. You know, now it's not just ABC, NBC, CBS, it's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's Fox News, and even beyond that, because those traditional news sources are dying, it's the internet. The internet is full of different news sources that are constantly looking for content and constantly digging deeper. And so now we're just hearing, we might just be hearing about this a lot more, should I say. So that is scary, because it says that these female predator teachers may not be anything new. That it's just that our 24-hour-a-day news cycle means that we're just going to see more of them, and it's salacious. Let's just be real. The majority of teachers who abuse students are still male. I'm not saying that women aren't make up the majority. They're not. But the female stories are the ones that get attention, like Mary Kay Letourneau. That's the one I remember from when I was a kid, when I was young. She actually was a married woman with, I think, 3 or 4 kids, and she started having an affair with her 13-year-old student. Got put in jail for it, got out of jail, did it again, got caught by the police, and ended up pregnant by her male student when he was 13 or 14 years old. They ended up getting married and having children, other children. They were married for like 20 years. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe she died in the last few years. Mary Kay Letourneau, I believe she died about 5 years ago or something. But I think they were married up until she died. So just imagine, she essentially groomed her husband. She made her husband. And much of society laughed at it and was like, oh, where was she at when I was a kid? But in reality, that young boy never had a chance to do anything else. He didn't have a chance to go to college and meet girls or meet women at his job or workplace or any of that other stuff. He didn't get, he actually, from the time he was 13 years old, was essentially groomed to please this one woman who was, I think, 30 years older than him or something. Now, the research shows that men are more opportunistic and predatory, more aggressive, with the motivation being on sex. But these female teachers tend to be motivated, seems to abuse their students in different ways and for different reasons, and has more to do with emotional conflict, unmet intimacy needs, personal issues, loneliness, and feelings of isolation, which in some ways I think might be worst. Again, you're screwing up somebody's mentally. I'm not saying either is, like, I'd want to kill anybody who touched my kid in any way, but physical damage, on some instance you can do something about that, but mentally, the type of mental health damage that these women are doing to these young men is horrific. Now, there are school administrators all over this country who are failing to prevent this abuse, and there is not yet a federal agency that tracks teachers' sexual misconduct. Between 2017 and 2022, at least 1,895 teachers have had unfavorable action taken against their credentials by State Education Licensing Board for sexual misconduct. So that's about 2,000, almost 2,000 teachers between 2017 and 2022. That's a lot. For sexual misconduct and inappropriate relationships that may not be of a sexual nature, according to the nonprofit National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification, or NASDTEC. That figure is an underestimation, since many states do not provide the reason why a teacher's credentials were suspended or revoked. So it's much more than 2,000. A lot of states don't even tell people why teachers have been had their credentials revoked. Now, just in the last year, between March 1st of 2023 and March 21st, 2024, there were 113 arrests of contact to no sexual contact misconduct involving the students. This number includes both licensed teachers and other school employees, including coaches, administrators, teachers' aides, and bus drivers. Wow, that is horrific. Now, the typical physical profile of a female sexual predator is a Caucasian woman in her 30s, according to the research. But, and this is a but, because we're in a heavily minority area, female sex offenders are not always exclusively white or between the ages of 30 and 40 years old. There was an African-American woman named Stephanie Woods, who was a biological teacher in Texas, who was arrested for having an improper relationship with a girl, a teenage girl. Another predatory practice is luring these victims with sexually suggestive or outright pornographic posts on social media or in private digital communications. And so, folks, look, I know this is a very uncomfortable topic. We talked about a very uncomfortable topic last week with the rise in STDs in people over 55. But like we have to do a better job of looking out for our young people as well. And more importantly, we have to prioritize the occupation of teacher. Once again, the most important occupation on the planet. You don't have a president who didn't go to school. Show me a president who didn't go to school at all. Show me a doctor, a lawyer who didn't go to school at all, who didn't have teachers. Every occupation there is, just about all of them required that you go to school and be taught. And we, as a society, have allowed teaching to get caught up in these culture wars that we have become so immersed in. They've taken over every facet of our society. You can't even watch sports anymore without the culture war baggage. You see, even the WNBA, which nobody even really watched until very recently, until Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and those people showed up. And now they're caught up in the culture war. Because, you know, oh, the white girl, y'all can't like the white girl. Oh, the black girls are ghetto. The white girl, her people are racist. You know, everything is culture war. And teaching, unfortunately, has been caught up in the culture war, with many conservatives spending the last few decades gutting public education. And this is what you get. This is what you get. You get people who should not be teaching. Why would anybody with a bright mind and a good future ahead of them, why would they want to become teachers at this point? When we're underpaying these people drastically. Why would they want to be teachers? It's just like cops. It's just like virtually every other facet of the public commons and the public, all of our public servants. They're being drastically overpaid, so now nobody wants to do these jobs. And so we're getting people who should not have these jobs, who are unqualified, who oftentimes are mentally deranged, crazy, deranged, as Martin used to say. We are getting people who have no business being in front of children. I don't blame any of you at all for homeschooling your children at this point, just to keep them out of the culture war baggage. You got teachers grooming children. You got disgruntled teachers who are being drastically underpaid. We have to do something about this, folks. We really do. I get whoever figures out Whoever figures out what we have to do, hell, give me a call, 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. We are not done talking about the youth. As the saying goes, youth is wasted on the young. And this next story is going to show you, is going to illustrate that. This is Straight Out of the Cannon, Issues and Answers Friday with me, Scott Cannon. We'll be right back after these, humans. Don't go nowhere.